Hey, everybody. Hi. Spring's almost here, and all three of us decided that we would pop on here, do a quick live for you, and talk a little bit about things that you can be thinking about as we reach the end of the first quarter of the year. And today I want to introduce to you first myself. I'm Ruth Sternberg, and I am a career coach. And I work with people to help them figure out their career path and then go for it with fresh new marketing materials. Then we have Nermine Zakhary. Her business is called Strengths Edge, and she is a strengths coach. She is highly trained to help you take a look at your key strengths and help you figure out what that really means for you in your career. And then we have Dalena Bradley with Dalena Bradley Career Marketing. Dalena is an interview coach and helps you get ready for those important moments, which these days are like this, right in front of the camera, more often than not, right? So today we wanted to offer a little bit of advice to you about things that you can be thinking about as I said, near the end of the first quarter here. Boy, time flies because doesn't it feel like the year just started, like last week?
It does. It does.
So I think we'll start off with Nermine. What do you think people should be thinking about?
Oh, it's interesting, Ruth. Just today, a colleague of mine posted a comment on a post on LinkedIn in response to something I had shared, and she said, hey, are you pursuing change? Know the direction through the GPS of strengths.
Oh,
I love that. I love the analogy of the GPS because our strengths do inform how we contribute and also what we need in order to thrive. So indeed, they do become a guide for us to see where we're going to fit in the best, where we can make an impact, where we're going to do some meaningful work, and how we feel appreciated and feel taken care of. So looking at strengths is a really, really important place to start.
What are some examples of what a strength might be? When you say strengths, what do you mean?
Oh, you can be adaptable. You could be strategic. You might be a maximizer, someone who takes something and good and make it great. Or you might be more of a relator, really know how to connect with individuals. So there are different ways that we show up, and each of them really allows us to be at our. It's who we are. Allows us to be at our best. When we allow our strengths to surface and show up and do their thing, that's when we create those authentic connections, the buzzword of the year, right? Those really connect with others and show up at your best. And so looking at strengths is a really important place to start.
Oh, I 100% agree. I think that most of us don't take a lot of time to self-reflect and consider who we are, why we're doing what we're doing. Where we are really centered in the best work that we can possibly do, that we can offer an employer when that employer needs something from us, right? We just match ourselves up with any job that seems like it's working, right? And we don't really take the time to think about, well, wait a minute, I'd be really good at this management role because of my top strengths.
Right.
And I have a lot of strengths, and I can learn how they all sort of work together to make me the powerhouse that I am, right?
Absolutely.
And it's also true about our values, which can be discussed in this context as well, right? I mean,
absolutely. It's about finding the right It's finding a, the right employer that's going to value what you bring, that will allow you to express your strengths in your job role, and also and where your values, where the company has the same values that you have, so that you feel that when you show up, um, you're you're in alignment with the way the company operates, with how you want to serve, and everything works that much better.
Oh, definitely. And that's a good segue into what I was going to say, that a really good thing for you to do right now, and really any time of year, is, of course, number one, to reflect a little bit on what you're good at, why you like doing certain things, what has been the pattern in your career so far. What are those jobs that have been great for you and others that weren't so great? And why is that exactly? Was it random? Was there some kind of matchup that wasn't happening? So that's a good thing to do. But once you know all of that, to apply that to the research that you're doing on the companies where you want to work. And I advise you to keep a working list of 20 companies in which you're interested in working for, right? And you always run across companies in the news, and you might find a friend of yours might work someplace, and you're like, oh, that sounds like an interesting place. And another place to look for companies is lists that are published by business publications. I know many of the if you have a business newspaper in your community, they may have a book of lists. Mm-hmm. It's a great resource. And if you're not a subscriber, and I recommend being a subscriber because it can be great, go to the library and ask the reference department if they have a subscription, and then look at this book, because it sorts companies by all these different categories. But anyway, in keeping your list of 20, it's just a good idea to constantly be doing research on these companies. Read their website, look at what they publish about themselves. Do they have case studies? What kind of media have been produced about them by outside sources? Have they been featured in business publications? Have they been in general publications? Trade industry publications? And also, interestingly, many companies have a YouTube channel. And sometimes you'll find the CEO giving from a speech, doing a talk about something about the company. And of course, all the media, all the social media now, there are a lot of companies that are on everything, and you can look for clips and posts and all kinds. You can really get a feel for these companies, but it's also about talking to people who work at these companies, and networking is a subject that I want to talk about at some future date as well. It's really important, but you want to be trying to meet people who work at your top companies, and just being curious and finding out what life is like over there, because if you want to work there, you're honestly not going to be able to make a huge decision about that from reading a job post.
Right.
You're going to find out better from somebody who actually works there every single day. So that's kind of my top advice for something that you can be doing right now. And Dalena, I know you want to add to this conversation.
I really like what you said about the sources of finding companies that you want to work for, being intentional, being proactive. That's really the key. And to what Nermine said earlier, this is all about intention and proactivity, and not being necessarily at the mercy of what you see coming at you and being in reactive mode. But the book of lists is a great one. And I one additional thought I have on the topic is, people can get caught up on all the popular kids in town, if you will, as far as companies, the bigger name companies, and kind of get fixated on working for one of those companies, when in actuality there are so many terrific companies out there. They just don't know who they are, and they're harder to find because they're smaller, or maybe there's less information. So taking the time to really dig, and then you're also improving your odds of getting access into those companies, because the masses aren't necessarily targeting them. So, and they can be much better fit long term, you know?
Yeah, knowing if you want to work for a large or small company is really important.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's part of the research for sure. So one of the things that from an interview standpoint, it crosses over with research is that you could be doing before the end of Q1, which is in just a couple of weeks, is, and talking about intention, that's sort of the theme, is knowing what is your market value. I always tell people before they ever actively start job hunting, they need to do, first of all, a self-analysis on salary. And, you know, what is it that I need? What are my minimum salary requirements that I need to maintain my lifestyle the way I want and meet my financial goals for myself and or my family? And coming up with what that number is, and then maybe a mid-range and then a high range, which, you know, the sky's the limit there, right? As far as, you know, we don't necessarily want to put a cap on that, but reality is, so first doing that self-analysis is important, and just figuring out, okay, what are my monthly expenses? Just real basic math there. And then moving on to, okay, now I want to understand what my market value is. So that when I am actively job hunting, I am well informed and I can have confident and informed conversations with potential hiring managers and recruiters when it gets to that point. And, you know, we're all, face it, people are working to make money. And so this is a really important first step, and one that people sometimes skip over. And then when those initial conversations happen, they're like a deer in the headlights. So it's really important. Okay, so what's my market value? Well, how do you find out your market value? Super easy. You can go to a number of online salary calculators like salary.com or payscale.com, glassdoor.com. You can certainly get some inside information on salary through your network. You can certainly do some research as to, you know, job postings are good for salary research, those that actually state and are, if they're in a state where salary transparency is key, or a law, that they do that. And so there are all kinds of ways of getting salary information, and don't rely too heavily on one source. Make sure it's a composite of several sources. And then you want to take into mind your geography, your job level, your industry, because even you could be at a very high level, yet in a industry that might be nonprofit or government or something like that, where the salaries may be a little more static than tech. So you want to do that kind of research and then understand, okay, this is what is correct. And so if you're hit with what are your salary expectations, and there's a whole video, a whole conversation we could have just on fielding that question. The key is to turn the question back on them, first of all, and ask what's the range for the role, so you're not putting yourself in a position where you're naming the number first, and that's another whole conversation. But you're informed. If they keep pushing and pushing, no, what's your range? Then you're informed.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. I mean, I feel like people just jump into a job search sometimes, and they don't. The advanced work that they do before they start is minimal. And then once they get into the search, it's suddenly, oh my God, I got to find out about the salary. I got to find out about the thing and the other thing and this, and then I got to get. Doing advanced work can always help you in your job search in so many different ways. And I know you might not be looking for a job right now, but I still think that doing some of these things is valuable to you all the time. Because if you're constantly maintaining a list of companies you're interested in, just out of curiosity, could come in handy. You just don't know. You could discover an opportunity. Maybe something happens at your company that you weren't expecting, right? And also you stay ready knowing your value, and you stay ready knowing who you are. So at any given time, you can just move forward, right?
Yeah.
I love those tips. And would love to, like, while you're doing the self-analysis and creating your lists and thinking about salary and being prepared before you walk in, Ruth and Dalena, would it be right just to offer just a thought about strengths as you're in that self-analysis and preparing some things? So the tool I use is the Clifton Strengths Assessment.
Right.
Right. The Strengths Finder. With or without the tool, you can start to pay attention, start noticing what are the activities that you are naturally drawn to. Think about where does learning come easy for you? Where do you feel content, satisfied after you've completed an activity? Where do you lose all track of time, that timelessness effect? And then those moments when you've, those glimpses of excellence, when you finish something and you're like, wow, I just did that. Start paying attention to these things, journal about them, make note of them, and pay attention. And then start asking folks around you, what do you see as my strengths? Where do I make a difference? And start collecting this information as you prepare to just be prepared for what might come next, or as you actually are preparing for that job search and your next opportunity.
Oh, 100%. I mean, one of the first exercises I've always given clients is that I have them think back through their job histories and write down those things that they've been in the flow doing over the years, and the things that they just were a slog that they just don't want to do, and I sometimes work with the UMAP process, which incorporates the Clifton Strengths and adds values and preferred skills to it. And that's another way to view it. It really helps you get a handle on, like, what do you prefer to do and what do you really not want to be doing, right? So it's surprising how often we're called upon to use those skills that we really don't prefer to use.
Yeah.
For me, that would be like doing spreadsheets,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dalena, what do you
started on reflection? It's about reflecting on past successes, the things we looked forward to, enjoyed doing, made us feel strong, the things that didn't, and keeping all of that information at the ready as we begin our search.
Dalena, do you have anything to add?
I just keep going back to it. There's always, it's just routinely remembering to write things down and note things, and keeping a file that is you can just call it career or whatever, right? And whether it is, Ruth, I'm sure in your work when you're helping with the marketing materials, people need to keep a file of when they've accomplished something, write it down, or not a physical file. It can be obviously however people choose, right? It can be a physical file or not, or both, so you have your bases covered. And just routinely, maybe setting an alarm in your calendar on a quarterly basis, at least, to do a half an hour of self-reflection that is going to keep you in check with regards to your career, even if you're not thinking about looking tomorrow.
Like that.
Well, we hope the three of us hope to get together again periodically to talk about different career topics. And this was our first one. So I think everything went pretty well, ladies.
Great to be with you both. Yeah.
Yep.
Stay tuned. stay tuned, everybody, because we will be announcing some more conversations, and hopefully the next time we will be taking your questions and answering them too. So everybody have a great rest of March, and see if you can start implementing some of these ideas.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.